Love was never meant to be this exhausting. And yet, for so many people, it is. The story begins beautifully, an intense connection, almost electric. It feels fated, like two souls recognizing each other after lifetimes apart. But then something shifts. A silence grows between words. A fight begins over something small. And before either person understands what happened, the connection collapses under its own weight. It ends. But it doesn't stay ended. Because somehow, despite everything, they always find their way back. This is the strange gravity of the on-again, off-again relationship, a pattern that feels both unbearable and impossible to escape. To outsiders, it looks chaotic, even foolish. But to those inside, it feels like destiny, as if something greater than reason keeps pulling them toward each other. It's not just love, it's compulsion. The heart remembers the high of reunion far more vividly than it remembers the pain of separation. That's how the cycle begins again. But beneath that romantic story lies a darker psychological truth. These cycles are not random. They are structured, almost ritualistic, shaped by unconscious forces that neither partner fully sees. Each breakup and reconciliation isn't simply emotional drama. It's a reenactment of something deeper, something older. It is the psyche's attempt to resolve unfinished business that logic alone can't touch. Psychologists call this a repetition compulsion, a phenomenon where the mind unconsciously recreates painful experiences from the past, hoping to change the ending. Freud first described it, but Jung deepened the insight. What we call toxic love is often the soul's cry for integration. It repeats the wound until it's finally understood. In other words, the relationship is not just between two people. It's between two psyches mirroring each other's unresolved pain. When two people fall into this cycle, they aren't just in love. They are in a psychological dance choreographed by the ghosts of their pasts. One partner might carry the wound of abandonment, the other of engulfment. Together, they trigger each other's deepest fears, the fear of being left and the fear of being trapped. Each reunion promises healing. Each breakup reopens the wound. It's not addiction to a person, it's addiction to the unresolved. The first breakup rarely feels final because it doesn't complete the emotional arc. It ends abruptly, without resolution, leaving both people haunted by what feels unfinished. The mind mistakes that incompletion for destiny. We must be meant to be, otherwise why can't we move on? But it's not fate keeping them connected. It's the unhealed energy between them, an emotional gravity field that pulls them back to the scene of the original wound again and again. And yet, each return feels different. There's always hope. This time will be better. We've grown. We understand each other now. It's the same hope that fuels addiction, the belief that control is possible. But what's really happening is reinforcement. Every reunion strengthens the illusion that the pain can be redeemed through the same pattern that caused it. The psyche is clever, but not wise. It confuses familiarity with safety. At the start of every reunion, the chemistry is blinding. Neuroscience explains it as a flood of dopamine and oxytocin, the same neural cocktail released in gambling wins and drug highs. The unpredictability of the relationship makes it even more potent. Variable reward schedules, the kind where love and rejection alternate unpredictably, are the most addictive psychological pattern known. You never know if the next text will bring affection or silence, warmth or withdrawal, and that uncertainty keeps the brain craving. This is why people say, I know they're bad for me, but I can't let go. They aren't weak, they're neurologically entangled. The relationship has hijacked the reward circuitry that evolved for survival. Every reconciliation feels like relief, like oxygen after drowning, but the relief is temporary. What feels like love is often the easing of withdrawal, but addiction isn't the full story. There's something more tragic, more human beneath it, the longing for repair. Most people who get caught in these cycles are not seeking chaos, they're seeking wholeness. They're trying, desperately, to heal an ancient fracture in their self-worth, to prove that love can exist even in rejection, that pain can be redeemed through devotion. The relationship becomes an emotional battleground where the child within each person tries to rewrite history. This time, they won't leave. This time, I'll be enough. The cruel irony is that both people often share the same wound but play opposite roles. One becomes the chaser, desperate for closeness, terrified of loss. The other becomes the distancer, terrified of being consumed, desperate for control. Each sees the other as the cause of their suffering, but in truth, both are caught in the same emotional loop. When the chaser stops chasing, the distancer panics. When the distancer withdraws, the chaser feels abandoned. Each one's fear validates the other's. And so round and round it goes. But here's the deeper paradox. Despite the suffering, these relationships hold immense potential for growth. Because what's being revealed again and again is the core architecture of your attachment, the blueprint you carry from childhood into adulthood, the one that dictates who you love and how you lose them. When seen consciously, this cycle becomes a mirror, not a trap. It shows you where your freedom ends and your conditioning begins. So, when you find yourself in that familiar storm, when the silence stretches too long, when the arguments repeat word for word, pause. Don't rush to fix it, don't rush to flee. Ask yourself, what part of me is speaking right now? What old fear am I reliving? The pattern can't survive awareness. Once you see the mechanism, it starts to lose its power. And yet, awareness alone is not enough. Because love, even when toxic, is never purely rational. It's visceral. It's the body remembering something it can't explain. Which is why, even after understanding the psychology, the heart may still ache to return. That ache isn't weakness. It's a signal that something in you still longs to be healed. The question is whether you'll seek that healing in the same cycle, or finally step outside of it. Because there's always a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when the pattern hesitates. When you could reach out, but you don't. When you feel the urge to reopen the door, but you breathe instead. That moment is evolution. It's the first time your nervous system chooses peace over familiarity. It's the birth of real love, not the romantic kind, but the kind that begins within yourself. And maybe that's the real lesson of the on-again, off-again relationship. It's not about finding the perfect partner. It's about recognizing the pattern within. Until you do, every lover will carry the same face. But once you see it, truly see it, you no longer need the chaos to feel alive. Because love, when healed, doesn't need to hurt to prove it's real. Love, when fractured by fear, becomes a theater of repetition. The on-again, off-again couple is not two people trapped in chaos. They are two psyches orbiting the same emotional wound, performing variations of the same story in the desperate hope of rewriting it. It feels unique, it feels personal, but the pattern is ancient. It is the drama of attachment, the quiet neurosis that underlies so much of what we call romance. Every human being carries a template for love, a map formed long before they ever touched another hand. It's written in the nervous system, in the way your caregiver looked at you, in the tone of voice that calmed or frightened you. If you were met with safety, your body learned to rest in connection. If love came with volatility, withdrawal, or inconsistency, your nervous system learned something very different. That love is unpredictable. That closeness is both desired and dangerous. And from that single lesson, entire destinies are written. The on-again, off-again relationship is the body's memory acting itself out. One moment, it seeks fusion, the need to dissolve into the other, to feel whole again. The next, it recoils, terrified of being engulfed, losing identity, being hurt. This push and pull is not madness, it's biology. It's the oscillation between the two fundamental fears that haunt every human heart, the fear of being alone and the fear of being controlled. When people say they can't quit someone, they're not being poetic. They're describing a nervous system caught in feedback. Every breakup triggers withdrawal. Every reunion restores the dopamine hit. And because unpredictability magnifies craving, the cycle becomes self-reinforcing. The relationship becomes less about love and more about the temporary relief from an unbearable ache, an ache that's older than either partner. Neuroscientists call this the pain of social rejection, but in truth, it feels like death. The brain registers heartbreak in the same regions as physical pain, which is why, when they return, the relief feels divine. It's not metaphor, it's neurochemistry. But to see this pattern clearly is to risk losing its romance. And that's terrifying. Because for many, the intensity itself becomes the proof of love. If it hurts this much, if it feels this overwhelming, it must be real. Yet that belief is precisely what sustains the illusion. The mind confuses emotional turbulence with depth, volatility with passion. We mistake trauma activation for chemistry. Psychologists like Esther Perel have noted that for people raised in emotional uncertainty, calm love feels alien, even suspicious. Peace can feel like boredom, consistency like emptiness. So they unconsciously gravitate toward partners who recreate the familiar chaos of childhood, not because they enjoy suffering, but because it feels like home. The nervous system seeks what it recognizes, not what heals it. Each cycle follows a script: reunion, euphoria, disillusionment, conflict, collapse. It's the same play, the same lines, only performed with increasing desperation. The hope each time is that maybe, through enough love, enough compromise, enough forgiveness, the ending will change. But the ending doesn't change until the characters do, until they stop seeking redemption through repetition. The truth is, most on-again, off-again couples are not addicted to each other. They're addicted to the story of each other, to the illusion that this connection holds the missing piece of their identity. In that sense, the other person becomes less a partner and more a symbol, a mirror reflecting their own sense of lack. This is why leaving feels like annihilation. You're not just losing a lover, you're losing the version of yourself that existed in their eyes. And so they return, not out of strength, but out of longing for wholeness. The breakup becomes unbearable not because the love was pure, but because it revealed the void beneath it. That's the cruel paradox of attachment. The same longing that draws you to another also exposes how incomplete you feel without them. We call it romance, but beneath it lies a profound existential fear, the terror of facing the self without the mirror of the other. Nietzsche once wrote that love is the state in which man sees things most decidedly as they are not. He wasn't being cynical, he was being diagnostic. In love, we project, not because we're delusional, but because the psyche is trying to complete itself. We don't fall in love with people as they are. We fall in love with the parts of ourselves we've disowned, seen shimmering in someone else. That's why on-again, off-again relationships feel magnetic. The psyche senses something essential within the other, something it both desires and fears. Integration through attraction, destruction through confusion. When they come back together after a breakup, it's not simply affection that draws them in. It's the psychic urge to repair the fracture, to finally merge with the missing part. But fusion never lasts, because the unconscious cannot heal through repetition. It heals through awareness. Without that awareness, the same pattern reemerges, the same arguments, the same distance, the same pain disguised as fate. And yet, there's an almost tragic beauty to it. Two people unknowingly performing the ancient ritual of self-recognition. Their suffering is not meaningless. It's the psyche's attempt at evolution. Each collapse forces them to confront their illusions, to see where love ends and projection begins, where longing becomes self-deception. Every breakup, however devastating, is an invitation to grow beyond the pattern. But most people turn away from that invitation, mistaking the pain of transformation for the pain of loss. Every lie begins with fear. Not the kind that makes you run from danger, but the quieter kind, the fear of being seen, of being known too deeply and found wanting. Somewhere within every human heart lies a contradiction. We crave to be understood, yet we dread what understanding might reveal. And so we build masks, carefully, beautifully. We tell stories about ourselves not to deceive others, but to survive ourselves. That is the beginning of all cheating, all deception, the fragile architecture of truth bending under the weight of our longing to belong. People often talk about cheating as an act, a betrayal of trust, a moral failure, a selfish impulse. But the real story runs deeper. Cheating is not born in the moment of betrayal. It's born in the quiet erosion of authenticity that happens long before. It's not just about lying to someone else. It's about lying to the image of who you thought you were. Before a person cheats on another, they cheat themselves. Before they deceive the world, they deceive their reflection. Why do we do it? Why do people risk everything, love, loyalty, even identity, for the sake of a lie? The answer lies not in immorality, but in the strange mechanics of human psychology. We are creatures of conflict, torn between desire and duty, honesty and self-preservation. We build civilizations on rules, but our instincts don't read laws. The ancient animal inside us still hungers for freedom, for novelty, for validation, for the electric thrill of what is forbidden. And when that hunger collides with the boundaries of conscience, deception becomes the bridge. Cheating in any form is not just about lust or greed. It's a rebellion against confinement. It's the psyche saying, "I am more than this mask you've made me wear." In that sense, deceit is not always an act of cruelty, but of desperation, the soul gasping for air beneath the weight of expectation. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "We have art in order not to perish of the truth." What he meant is that truth, unfiltered, is unbearable. We need illusions to function. We need narratives that make sense of our chaos. That's why deception is so seductive, because it offers temporary relief from the terror of exposure. It gives us the illusion of control in a world where control is impossible. We cheat because we want to feel alive again, even if it means living inside a lie. But deception doesn't start in romance or politics or business. It starts in childhood. We learn early that truth has consequences, that honesty can lead to punishment, rejection, humiliation. A child learns to lie not out of malice, but out of survival. To tell the truth is to risk abandonment. To lie is to protect belonging. And so deception becomes a form of love, twisted but functional. We tell people what they want to hear because we're afraid they won't love us if we tell them what's real. Over time, that strategy becomes our nature. We forget we're lying at all. This is why cheating, in relationships, in friendship, in society, feels both exhilarating and tragic. It's exhilarating because it reawakens that primal thrill of freedom. It's tragic because it destroys the very intimacy we crave. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you can never have." That's what deception does. It creates a false future, a reality that cannot sustain itself. And when it collapses, what's left is the ache of what might have been if only we had the courage to live truthfully. Psychologists have long studied why humans deceive. From Freud's theory of the unconscious, which hides truth even from ourselves, to Kahneman's studies on cognitive bias, the conclusion is always the same. We are not rational beings who sometimes lie. We are emotional beings who construct rational stories to justify our lies. The brain doesn't seek truth, it seeks coherence. It would rather hold a comforting illusion than face a painful fact. That's why self-deception is so common, because it feels safer to believe a beautiful lie than to endure an ugly truth. But if deception is so deeply woven into our psychology, is honesty even possible? Can we truly live without lying, not just to others, but to ourselves? The uncomfortable truth is that complete honesty might be too heavy for most minds to bear. Absolute truth strips away the narratives that give us meaning. It leaves us naked before the void. And so, like all living things, we adapt. We lie to survive. We cheat to feel free. We deceive to remain whole. Yet every deception carries a cost, a subtle corrosion of the soul. When you lie, a part of you splits. The image you project and the self you suppress become two separate entities, drifting further apart with every unspoken truth. Jung called this the shadow, the collection of denied parts of ourselves we hide from the world. The more we repress, the darker the shadow grows. Eventually, it demands attention, and when it surfaces, it does so destructively, through betrayal, addiction, or breakdown. That's why people who cheat often say, "I don't know why I did it." They don't. It wasn't the conscious self that acted. It was the shadow finally speaking. Society treats cheaters as villains, deceivers as morally broken. But in truth, they are mirrors, reflections of our collective hypocrisy. We live in a culture that worships honesty but rewards deception. We celebrate transparency, yet we curate every image. We condemn infidelity while consuming fantasies of it. We expect perfection from others while hiding our flaws in plain sight. In such a world, deception isn't an anomaly, it's a norm disguised as virtue. So perhaps the real question isn't why do people cheat, but why do we pretend we don't? Because in one way or another, everyone cheats the truth. We cheat time by pretending we'll live forever. We cheat love by offering half our hearts while expecting full devotion. We cheat our dreams by trading them for comfort. The forms differ, but the essence is the same, a subtle betrayal of what is real. But understanding this isn't the same as excusing it. Awareness doesn't absolve us, it enlightens us. The point is not to justify deceit, but to see it clearly, to understand that beneath every act of betrayal lies a wound. People deceive not because they're inherently wicked, but because they're human, scared, longing, imperfect. And until we can face those parts of ourselves with compassion, we'll keep repeating the same patterns, each lie a cry for something real. This is how real transformation happens, not through force, but through awareness. Awareness doesn't kill the love, it refines it. It turns obsession into understanding, dependency into discernment. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, what in me kept saying yes to it? That shift is everything. Because once you take responsibility for your role in the cycle, you reclaim your power to end it. The on-again, off-again relationship is, in the deepest sense, an initiation. It's a mirror so raw, so merciless, that it forces you to confront the unconscious patterns you would otherwise avoid. It strips you down to the essential, the truth that you cannot love fully until you have learned to be whole alone. The pain of the cycle is the price of awakening. But once the lesson is integrated, you never need to repeat it again. And if you're listening to this now, perhaps this message finds you in the middle of that pattern, maybe after another breakup, another return, another round of promises that something will change. Maybe part of you knows deep down that it won't. That's not hopelessness, that's wisdom knocking. Because you're starting to see what the pattern was trying to teach you all along. That the love you've been seeking is the one that survives even when everything else ends. So don't rush to forget. Don't numb it away. Let the silence teach you. Let the ache breathe. Because this stillness, this absence, this fragile new space inside you is where the real relationship begins. The one between you and your own becoming. And when you finally meet someone again, not from emptiness, not from need, but from presence, it won't feel like a high. It will feel calm, steady, almost ordinary. That's how you'll know it's real. Because true love doesn't ignite chaos. It quiets it. So if this reflection resonates, if it reminds you of your own cycles, your own lessons in letting go, stay with this work. Stay curious about your own patterns. Keep exploring the hidden machinery of the mind and heart. Subscribe not out of habit, but out of hunger. Hunger to understand yourself more deeply, to love more clearly, to live more consciously. Because in a world addicted to repetition, awareness is rebellion. And love, when freed from illusion, is the most revolutionary act there is.